Stop believing that you're a victim. Stop pretending to be the victim, because you're most likely not. Life doesn't happen to you, and it doesn't happen for you. It just happens. And the way you react to it dictates your emotions, which dictate your actions, which dictate your life. If you perceive yourself as the victim, you will only see problems, weakening yourself, putting yourself at the mercy of your environment and that of others. But if you perceive yourself as the author of this story, you will see solutions, empowering yourself, navigating your ship and bending reality by sheer force. Life is relentlessly challenging, and both options are always there. You can choose victimhood, but you will always lose. Or you can choose mastery, and you might just win. Today, I want to talk about victim mentality and feeling like the world is conspiring against us and that everything is not going the way we want it to or the way it should, or our life is not going as well as XYZ's life, and how we feel trapped, feeling like we're constantly being attacked and feeling like we're constantly the victims. So I want to start off by making it clear that sometimes we are actually victims, and other times we are pretending to be the victims or convincing ourselves to be the victims. And what is going to come in this episode applies to most cases, and to the other cases where it doesn't necessarily directly apply, it may still have some benefits mentally. Everything that I'm going to say in this episode is not in any way intended to belittle people's own struggles and difficulties and hardships. I also want to add, if you are a victim of abuse or if you're a victim of really harsh life circumstances, never be ashamed to talk to someone about it. We all understand that life can be difficult, so never be ashamed and never be embarrassed to ask for help. And if you are in a situation where you're threatened or you feel afraid to come forward, just know that there is always a way to approach it cautiously. Just know that you're not alone, and there will always be people there to help you, and we're never alone, at least not forever. So maybe find solace in that idea that there will always be someone who's willing to help. Now, I want to start off by talking about animals. I live here in Florida, so there's always lizards walking around and crossing the sidewalks really fast. And they do this really stupid thing where if you're walking down the sidewalk, it's clear, there's nothing in your path, and you're just walking. All of a sudden, as soon as you step on the path, lizards start crossing left and right in front of you. It's almost like they're just like adrenaline junkies who are playing a game of who's gonna make it past the giant who's walking down the path. So because lizards are daredevils, you always find either dead lizards or injured lizards. And something that I've noticed is with the injured lizards, imagine a truck, a 16-wheeler driving over you, and then imagine what that injury looks like, and then apply that to a lizard. So basically a human stepped on them, and their innards are just completely outward. However, if they do survive, they look just as alive as the healthy lizards, and they are just as much running for their lives and just as much aware of their surroundings, and none of them are sitting down and like, oh, look, my guts are out, I can't move anymore. They're still functioning, and if you couldn't see their injury, you would never suspect that they're injured. And one thing that I deduced from that is when something bad happens to me, I sit and dwell on my life for a while. And I just sit down and I cry about it and I complain and I talk to this person and that person and I try to get sympathy from everyone that I can. I post about it online and I'm just trying to get all this attention, and I stop my own progress in life because I'm in some difficult predicament. But these lizards, they're literally guts out and still going about life like nothing happened. They don't complain and stop their lives, almost like they understand that time is not going to stop and the universe is not going to stop. Everything is going to stay in motion, so you just have to keep going. I just feel like they have that mentality and that understanding. And same thing for like a spider building its web. There was a spider building its web in front of my front door every day. It would build its web. I would walk right into it and I would ruin it. And I'd get the web out of my hair. And then the next day, I walk out the door, again, the same web hits me in the face. And it just kept happening over and over and over. And that spider was so relentless. Like the spider never stopped and thought, ugh, I hate my life. I keep doing the same work over and over and over. And the universe just doesn't want me to do this or do that. And everything is conspiring against me. The spider just kept going back to building the web every single day. And so I feel like these animals have some kind of fundamental understanding that when we are experiencing hardships, we cannot simply stop. We have to keep going. But I feel like our emotional capacity and our intelligence as humans, when it comes to being faced with difficulties, it actually hinders us because we are so disconnected from the universe. We feel like everything revolves around us. So when we stop, we expect everything else to stop. But the reality is the universe is going to stay in motion and we need to keep up with it. And so with that said, I know that being a victim or feeling like a victim comes with a certain kind of comfort because when we are victims, we don't need to take any responsibility. Everything is happening to us and we weren't responsible for anything. And in that way, we don't have to take any kind of action because we're victims. So things are happening to us and everyone else is going to take the blame except for me. And so I don't have to do anything and I don't need to claim any responsibility. And in a way, it's just very comfortable. And then we can go to people and we can complain to them about what happened to us and we'll get sympathy and like they're giving us their positive energy and we just feel that and it builds us up. So feeling like a victim is a comfort zone in a way. So we resort to it whenever we can because it just feels good. But the flip side of that is that we feel sad and we feel weak when we assume the victim mentality or when we assume the victim position. It's never going to feel good, even if it feeds our ego. It just never feels good. We feel very sad to be the victim always. And the other thing about that is that the people that we complain to, it's draining for them to listen to our issues. And I'm not saying that to say if you feel like a victim or if you're having hardships, don't go to people. But I'm just saying it is draining for most people to show sympathy and show empathy because it's a part of their emotional capacity and they're giving you a part of their emotional battery that they're draining onto you. And so it's okay. However, it gets increasingly difficult when we are telling someone a story where we're supposed to be the victim, but they don't perceive it in the same manner. If they don't feel like we're the victim and they know they need to empathize with us or show us sympathy, and so they have to fake sympathy. And that is very draining. And these people are usually, they're not going to take other issues as seriously because they're going to see that, oh, well, you're someone that blows things out of proportion, or you're someone who's entitled, or you're someone who is going to always pretend to be the victim. So there's a flip side to pretending to be the victim or believing that you're the victim when you're not. But on the other hand, if you don't think you are the victim and you feel like life is not happening to you, but you are in charge and you get to affect the outcome of things based on your actions, it's actually inspiring and uplifting for other people. But on top of that, it's uplifting for yourself because you don't feel your energy is down, but you feel heightened and you feel like you're in control and you're driving. And so that feels good for you. It's even more of an ego boost than getting reassurance emotionally from people. Another thing about victimhood is that it is a passive mindset because it puts the world in charge and then it makes us bystanders in our own life. And so we feel like our mind is dormant, it's stagnant, it's in a passive state, it's not moving. And a dormant or a stale mind is a great feeding ground for overconsumption of entertainment or food. It's a great feeding ground for depression, for apathy and just feeling lazy and not feeling interested in doing anything at all. And so that is kind of like a vicious cycle where if you feel like a victim, you're going to get lazy and depressed, and then bad things are going to happen to you because of that, and then you're going to feel more like a victim, and it's just going to keep going in a circle. So it's just a sure way of getting yourself down mentally. And because our mind is inactive or passive, we're not actively thinking or trying to process or analyze or take action as we would with if we felt like we were in charge of our fate. And so because of that, the situation that we're in that's causing us to feel like victims is never going to actually improve because we're not thinking or analyzing or processing or taking action. And so we're going to stay in that position, meaning that we are perpetually feeling like a victim because we're never actually taking steps to change the situation that we're in and what we're doing, and essentially changing our circumstances, which will maybe lead to a winning scenario where we don't feel like victims anymore. And so we're gonna continue feeling like victims forever until either the circumstances change drastically in our favor, or until we actually start doing something about it, forcing the circumstances to change. In my opinion, I don't think life events are good or bad. I think life events are neutral, regardless of what it is. And it's the way that we perceive our circumstances or the life events that makes us either seem good or bad or neutral. And a victim mindset acts like a filter, a negative filter that makes us see the negative in everything. It makes us see everything negatively. So when a life event happens, if I am feeling like a victim, I'm gonna see it in a negative light. And then I'm gonna see all the problems in it. And because I'm so focused on these problems, I am then going to feel even more overwhelmed, and the situation is gonna seem worse in my eyes. However, if I feel like I'm in charge, or if I feel like life is not happening to me or for me necessarily, and I'm viewing things neutrally, I have a clear mind. I'm not biased in the way that I'm looking at things. And so I'm going to see some of the problems, but because I'm in a neutral state of mind, I'm also going to perceive some of the solutions to these problems. So I'm thinking clearly, and I'm able to make more accurate deductions about the situation I'm in. And then I'm going to be able to take action that is most likely going to change my circumstance or fix the problems that I'm in. This is one of the reasons that being in a victim mentality prolongs the period of suffering. Something that I recently heard is people who are most likely to climb the ladder of leadership or go in management positions, they are the ones who come up with solutions as opposed to the ones who point out problems. Most people, if not everyone, can point out problems and things and where things can be improved. But not everyone is good at pointing out what we can do to improve these things or what we can do to fix these problems. And it's those people who identify the problem and come up with a solution. Keyword, come up with the solution. These are the ones who are most likely to climb up the leadership ladders. Focus on finding the solution as opposed to complaining about the problem. Like, it's fine to identify a problem and then work on a solution, but just complaining about the problem and then expecting someone else to solve it for you is not the trait that a leader would have. Another thing of feeling like a victim and feeling like the universe is conspiring against us is that we feel special. We feel too special, and not in a good way. We feel special enough as if the universe handpicked us to bully us specifically. And because we feel like the life is going against us, against me as a person, and it feels like the universe versus me, then the problem seems a lot bigger than it might actually be. And because the fight seems a lot more difficult than it is, we feel less strong than we are. We feel weak and we feel disheartened. And so we don't fight back as hard, if at all. We were chosen to suffer. And because of that, we can't fight the universe because we feel like this is a lost cause. This is a lost battle. And I'm not even going to try. We just give in and we surrender. And so feeling like a victim puts us in that mentality because we feel like we are on our own. It's us versus the universe. However, if we don't feel like it's only us and we see the reality in that everyone is also suffering in their own way and that the world is just a challenging place to exist, and we look at everyone around us who is also experiencing challenges, we are going to feel motivated, or we're going to feel empowered to work harder, knowing that other people have overcome similar circumstances. And because of that, it's going to give us hope that we can overcome these circumstances as well, because we're not alone. And because we realize we're not alone in this world and we're not the only ones experiencing challenges, and that everyone else is also experiencing their own forms of difficulties, we become more sympathetic towards other people. And this allows us to be there for people when they need us. And this creates a better sense of community because we realize that we're in this bubble together and we need to be there for each other. And when I'm there for you and you're there for me, it creates a stronger sense of community. And not only that, but it also helps me overcome my problems, and it helps you overcome your problems much more efficiently and much more effectively. This is just a plus of not feeling like a victim on my own, but feeling that we're all in this together and everyone is experiencing their difficulties. And so we can be there for each other more. We can become more sympathetic and maybe more empathetic as well. And finally, I think relationships are going to become stronger. And this is not necessarily romantic relationships, but relationships in general. So whether friends or family or even acquaintances or partners, relationships become stronger once we don't feel like victims. So one of the symptoms of feeling like a victim is that when something happens to us, we keep it in, we bottle it up, and we just let it fester in our minds, and we let these thoughts, and we create these worlds in which the world is bad or someone is bad because their actions affected me, and then I interpreted them a certain way, and they're just there, and then it changes the way I perceive that person, which will in turn change the way that I subconsciously treat that person. And these little cues are gonna come up, and then a small problem that was once living in my head is going to become a much bigger problem between me and that person, effectively ruining the relationship. But I think if we don't feel like victims and we don't bottle these things up, and we don't let people's actions affect us, and then we don't blame them for it, we can actually be more proactive, and we can communicate more effectively, and we can bring it up with that person and say, hey, what did you mean when you said this? Or how do you feel about that? Or when you said this, I felt this way. We could always become more communicative once we stop bottling up these emotions. And that is not a sure way of fixing a problem, but it is much better than holding things in and then letting them grow in our internal reality that is probably very different from the actual reality of things. So it's good for us to not live in that victim mindset and let everything rot inside our heads, which then in turn ruins our actual life. So by not feeling like a victim, we can actually perceive the world as it is versus as our brain and our filters and our thoughts allow us to perceive it. So once we get out there and we're proactive and we feel like we're in charge and we are the ones that are in control of our lives, and it's not that the world is controlling us, we are influencing the world. That way we can think clearly, be proactive, and take action to mold the world into becoming the place that we would like to be in. And I'll say it again. Sometimes we're actually victims of abuse. We're actually victims of wars. We're victims of horrible circumstances, of a disease. There's a lot of things that can genuinely have a very strong hold on our lives that a mentality is not going to magically change. However, a lot of the things that we feel like victims about, in most cases, we can change our outlook on these situations, and we can change the way we perceive our circumstance, and in turn change our emotions and change our behaviors, and then change our lives finally to the better. And so this is applicable to most cases, but even in the cases where we're actually victims, having that mentality could help us think more clearly and maybe reach conclusions or reach outcomes that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to reach under the effects of a victim mentality. Want to say it one more time. This does not belittle anyone's issues. Everyone is going through their life, and their issues are just as real as anyone else's. And we can work on the way we perceive our external world and our internal world in order to create a good handshake between the two. Thank you for listening to this or watching it. So please leave a comment and let me know what I can do better, what we can talk about, and what is something you would have liked to hear or something we could add. I will try to implement it as much as I can. All right. Have a nice day.